In today's news, is this the final weekend, the final pullback before the major comeback before we see the markets open on Monday and crypto explode in value? Because sources suggest that Monday is going to be potentially a huge day for this market. And I can tell right now, I feel like something is brewing right now in this space, that we are about to see this space explode like never before. And actually in that regard, Donald Trump just recently signed an executive order for the US Treasury and the US government to modernize their payment system with cryptocurrencies. Do you know how big that is? How long we have been waiting for something like that? That is the first huge step towards mass adoption of crypto and just setting this asset class so much higher, making us therefore a hell of a lot of money. But what they didn't announce and admit out loud here is seemingly they want to use Ripple XRP and RLUSD to help them achieve this. Why? Well, with Ripple's ability to easily plug into existing structures like the Federal Reserve here, or the fact that Ripple are negotiating deals with many sovereign wealth funds right now, the government, in my belief, seems eager to get RLUSD, the stablecoin, out there and trading worldwide. Why? In order to maintain the dollar dominance. It's all about maintaining the dollar dominance right now, and Ripple are best positioned to help them achieve that, in my belief. And according to Mike Novogratz here, we could see a huge billing coming in just 2 days that would accelerate the adoption of crypto and of course XRP as well. We are very early, and crypto is no doubt the next generation of finance. And if you don't want to miss out on the incoming opportunities, then come learn more here in the VIP group, wop.com/coin factory, from alpha institutional research documents, educational courses, buy and sell alerts, and so much more. Check it all out. 7-day free trial as well. Link down below in the description. And I hope to see you there before time runs out. Now, to start off with, we've got this post here from Lord XRP. Trump recently signed an executive order to modernize payments with the United States, which is huge news. And this video here showcases how the floodgates are literally about to open, and in my belief this is significantly bigger and more important for the adoption and value of XRP than any other altcoin. Why? That is because Ripple is the biggest US crypto fintech company there is. Their reach is worldwide as well, and their roots are deeply ingrained into the United States. We recently received news that the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and the BIS are testing smart contracts to explore tokenized monetary policies. That's big news, and equally will help the expansion and use case of XRP. As documentation proves here from Smoke, Ripple can simply just plug into existing structures like the Federal Reserve System through FedNow. Proof in the pudding, very big news right there. So the big catalyst we're waiting for right now is still the implementation of stablecoin regulations and bills. And according to Mike Novogratz here, he's hinting that we may see the stablecoin bill come to the United States implemented in just 2 days' time, by Monday. Huge news. Take a listen.
Crypto finally at the brink, right? We're going to get a bill done on Monday, finally at the brink of institutional adoption. Right. And we have built our company for this moment. And so
this is further supported by Trump's executive director of digital assets once again, stating that he is very optimistic that crypto regulations will be passed later this year, so potentially it will be in just 2 days' time, like Mike Novogratz stated. Again, take a listen.
I remain very optimistic. I think that our colleagues from the Hill on both sides of the aisle understand how important stablecoin legislation is for the American people.
We've seen our volume definitely increase in crypto, and I think it's a combination of both the interest of our customer being present, but also the regulatory clarity that is starting to appear is making people a bit more excited about the space.
What I think you're seeing here at this conference is a recognition of crypto's resilience, that even in the face of unprecedented, intense political pressure in the United States and all over the world, crypto has endured.
This would be massive for the rapid expansion and price explosion of XRP. Stablecoin regulations give more freedom for banks to trade with, utilizing these stablecoins, like RLUSD for example. And to remind you of Ripple's recent partnership with Hidden Road, as we can see here, they will leverage RLUSD as collateral across its global prime brokerage platform, demonstrating the real first world application of cross-margining stablecoins in institutional workflows. RLUSD is already in such a strong position, and it's only going to explode more adoption from here on as well. The adoption of RLUSD literally benefits as well the adoption and value of XRP. It goes hand in hand. And it looks like the expansion for Ripple XRP RUSD is going to continue to accelerate and explode from here, and Ripple's senior vice president of stablecoins just stated that Ripple are talking to some very interesting sovereign wealth funds, amongst other things like even more partnerships to be announced in a couple of weeks to further expand the adoption and use case of XRP and RUSD. Again, huge news, so listen very closely.
In 2024, Ripple, you launched RLUSD. It's already achieved a market cap of well over $300 million. What makes it different from what's already in the market?
It's a good question. I get asked often as we were launching this, and I think the origin story really has to do with our history in cross-border payments, where Ripple's been doing this for 14 years. We've been a top mentor of USDC, so we've seen the use case. Specifically, what's different about us, and stablecoins, I think of them in different categories. There's either the US dollar backed or non-US dollar backed. 95+% of demand is for US dollar backed. Some are regulated, some are not. We've focused exclusively on the regulated, built for enterprise, dollar-backed, held as a fiduciary sort of stablecoin. And so that takes us on a certain journey, focusing on the institutional customers that Ripple's been servicing and doing it in a regulatory compliant way. And so we have a number of use cases that we're going after, but we're doing it from that foundation, if you will, making a bet that the past really is not our future, i.e. 0 to 240 billion has been led by some large issuers that are not regulated in the same way we are. We think that institutions are going to drive that next leg of demand that are going to really want the sort of foundation that Ripple represents.
Speaking of institutional, you just announced $1.25 billion acquisition of Hidden Road, making you the first crypto company to own a global multi-asset prime broker. How does RLUSD fit into that broader strategy?
I could not be more excited about it. And I think one of the initiatives that we've had at Ripple for a while is bridging the divide between traditional finance and crypto Web3 space. A lot of the customers that have used us for payments and custody are traditional banks, financial institutions. The Hidden Road acquisition just is a further accelerant into that overall thesis. And specifically, their business, which is a very quickly growing and I think very innovative business, really has both traditional finance clients and crypto as part of it. And so we think about how we can introduce RLUSD into their reg cap stack, into their whole way of basically lending money using RLUSD as a form of currency, if you will, within their ecosystem, and really driving more business for them, to be used overall.
Let's take a step back for a moment here. What are financial institutions and enterprises, what are they actually doing with stablecoin today? And what needs to happen for adoption to be achieved at scale?
Well, that's a broad question in terms of different types of institutions. So we talk to, in the payments business, again, stablecoins keep coming up as the killer app for payments. I think many of the customers to date have steered away from using cryptocurrency given the inherent volatility to it. So stablecoins are having a moment there, and I think the reaction we're getting by being regulated invites further institutions to come into that space. So that's part of it. I do think that there's an education that is happening that needs to happen at a greater clip around how stablecoins are really the least crypto there is out there, particularly ones like ours that are backed by US dollars, heavily regulated. They're really an alternative to a US dollar payment. And I think once customers or clients prospectively get their heads wrapped around that, they're going to feel more comfortable when their risk committee meets or when their board meets. The other thing that needs to happen is the infrastructure layer needs to continue to grow out into the ecosystem, right? So we focused in bringing RLUSD to market first on getting availability of the exchanges. We've got some terrific partners. We've got more that we're going to be announcing here in the next couple of weeks. The next layer is really building out the infrastructure. We can't do it alone. So we need more on and off ramps. We need more payment service providers. We need more banks that accept, crypto related companies or digital asset companies to basically pave the road so that stablecoins can be used as a means of exchange and as a wealth transfer. And I think couple those two with some regulatory clarity, which we're clearly getting here in the US, and I think that will be the big unlock for how stablecoins are used going forward.
I just think it's important to note that RLUSD is issued under the NYDFS
Right.
trust charter.
That's right.
So I would imagine that helps, with transparency, oversight, user confidence. It feels familiar to institutions.
And certainly for institutions, and I think you're spot on. We also, as a trust company, are a fiduciary. So different than if we had been issuing this out of a money transmitter license, for example. As a fiduciary, and this is a little understood but extremely important fact and distinction, is that we actually hold our customer reserves in a bankruptcy remote account strictly for the reserves to be used as redemption currency. So if Ripple or any other issuer that has that type of license were to go under in some unforeseen circumstance, no creditor could attach themselves to the reserves that are held truly bankruptcy remote. And the way we can do that is because we're a fiduciary under the New York banking laws.
Right.
So that's a very important distinction that we think will induce more institutions to use us going forward.
Yeah. And RLUSD, you were listed on Aave, Kraken, now Gemini. What's next for Ripple USD, and where do you see the momentum?
Well, we're certainly coming on to more exchanges that we'll be announcing here in the coming weeks. Also, we're seeing already demand from the hidden road clients, for example, who want to use RLUSD as collateral and using that in their own trade flows. So we're appealing to a number of regulators, for example, to approve RLUSD and other stablecoins that are issued like us as good collateral. That's a huge unlock for where I think the business can go. I do think the market cap will grow here. The big advantage of the legislation that's being proposed, we're already in a good pace from a regulatory standpoint. Some have suggested, hey, keep the moat tight. We'd rather have that moat unlocked and have more participants because we think as long as you're abiding by the rules, that will induce greater market growth. And that big opportunity is massive when you think about not only cross-border payments, but capital markets. We're talking to some interesting sovereign wealth funds. We're talking to trade finance companies. We're talking to large charitable organizations. I mean, the use cases that can just exponentially grow once you have available a stable coin like RLUSD that meets the criteria that institutions are used to using, per your question earlier, and that have the infrastructure to support how they want to utilize it.
That is one of the most bullish interviews I've heard in a very, very long time. We are literally days away now, seemingly, according to Mike Novogratz here. So stay locked in. Might be the last weekend we see a correction before we see a price explosion. Very, very close now. To learn more though, come check out the VIP grid. As always, remember, don't look short term, think long term. And I'll see you guys in the next one.